Welcome in, fans, to an off-season edition of This Week in CAA Football, powered by GEICO. I'm Bobby Broyles, fittingly joined by my colleague, Tim McDonald. Tim, I've missed doing these shows with you, man.
I'll just throw it out there. I'm trying to contain the excitement a little bit, but just all I asked for this spring is just talk a little CAA football, and that's what I got. So
You did. Football is in the air with spring practices getting underway, and today we're excited to announce that the 2016 CAA Football composite schedule has been finalized. It's never too early, like you said, to start talking
better
football.
late than never, but never late is better, and you never want to look too far ahead because I know we get excited just thinking about the matchups, and we've got a long way to go, but again, the schedule release is another way for the fans, for us, to get excited and really start turning that chapter into 2016. I don't know where to begin. You look at a cornucopia of FBS matchups. There's a lot of storylines that are going to continually shape the league and the conference moving forward. Of course, new stadiums developing. You'd have William & Mary in New Hampshire opening 2016 in new venues. And you can't remember, there's so many off-season storylines, but the biggest thing to me, we're not going to get into it too much today, but the running back position in this conference moving forward, and that's going to be the storyline. Kendall Anderson, Darius Victor, Thomas Jefferson, up and down the board. You can just go up and down the board of running back position. There's a lot of storylines heading into this year. I know it all starts with the schedules, though, so I'll let you do your little piece here.
Well, let's get right into breaking down the schedule, Tim. Each CAA football team will play 11 games this fall, 8 league games along with 3 non-conference matchups. Included on the schedule, once again, will be 13 showdowns with FBS opponents from the ACC, the Big 12, the American, the MAC, the Mountain West, and Conference USA. Tim, we say it every year, but CAA football is no stranger to these type of contests.
We do say it every year, but it's good. You look at week 1 alone. I'm going to be at the apartment locked down already. 8 games in that first weekend versus FBS foes. You look at the headliners: Maine at UConn, Rhode Island at Kansas, Richmond at Virginia, William & Mary at NC State. A couple of intriguing storylines, and the last 2 games, especially Richmond and William & Mary, you look at that, the Spiders and the Tribe bring back, not only starting quarterbacks, but they bring back a wealth of talent on offense and a bunch of guys who've played in these type of FBS atmospheres before. Danny Rocco has ties at UVA. The Spiders played at UVA 2 years ago. UVA needs a new QB, has a new head coach. That's interesting. That screams upset to me a little bit. NC State also needs a QB, and the Tribe, remember, played so well at UVA last year, lost by a touchdown. Those 2 teams, to me, have the best chance early on. That's just week 1. I know there's a lot of football left to talk about. Look at last year, too. You forget JMU knocked off SMU. That was a huge FBS win for the conference, put them on a national stage a little bit. Nova lost by 5 at UConn in the opening weekend. Towson also had a strong showing at East Carolina in week 1, lost by 8. Of course, Stony Brook also played well despite that game being canceled at Toledo, down 16-7 at half. It's a very competitive schedule slate that's shaping up against FBS foes. Again, it's not the David and Goliath type. It's going to be a tough challenge, and it's FBS teams who are athletic and big, but you love to see the continued FCS, FBS matchups across the conference, especially CAA football. These guys aren't scared to do it.
Indeed. This fall schedule will also feature several challenging matchups against non-conference FCS competition. CAA football finished 19-11 against non-league FCS foes in 2015, Tim.
Playing an old record here, but 24 straight seasons CAA football has had multiple NCAA playoff berths. 51 playoff wins in the last 10 years, and the last 10 years alone, there's been 11 semifinal appearances. So to me, that equates to success in non-conference FCS play, because we talk about how challenging of a schedule CAA football is, and everyone knows that. But you hang your hat as a CAA football team on taking care of business in non-conference FCS play. You look at this year's schedule, every team plays a full Division I schedule except Elon playing a Division II team. And highlights for me, jumping off the board, include right off the bat, Towson and New Hampshire, interestingly, both play at Dartmouth, a team out of the Ivy that shared the title of the Ivy League last year, also won 9 games. You look at other games that interest me. Richmond hosts Colgate. Colgate was a team that made a playoff run last year. That game's home for Richmond. Rhodey at Harvard, which would be a very tough matchup. I like Stony Brook's opening weekend versus North Dakota out of the Big Sky. North Dakota's a team, in my mind, that deserved a playoff berth last year, had an FBS win. You also have little intriguing matchups. Villanova playing 2 Pennsylvania teams in Lehigh and Lafayette. Up and down the board, a lot of Patriot League teams, a lot of MEAC, a lot of NEC. Mix in the flavor, a little bit of Northeast football, a little bit of Mid-Coast, Atlantic Coast football. But 12 of our 12 conference teams, 5 of our teams are going to start the year with 3 straight non-conference games. Kind of get those games, FBS and non-conference FCS games, get those out of the way, and then focus on CAA football play, which I like out of the gate.
Indeed, another opportunity for the league to flex its muscle before conference season starts, which kicks off on Saturday, September 10th, when UAlbany visits Rhode Island. Last season, we saw Richmond, JMU, William & Mary, and New Hampshire all reached the FCS playoffs, and Tim, those teams will face off a total of 5 times this fall to headline the conference schedule.
I mean, whenever conference schedules get released, of course you're going to look at the headliners. That's what's going to happen. That's what's the TV games. That's what people are going to look at.
Yep.
What teams did last year? Who are the teams returning that have strengths? And we start off a couple of early season games that I think could have big implications. You talk about Richmond at Stony Brook in week 3. I mean, that game to me is going to be one that could shape up the conference race. You look at also the same week, Towson at Villanova, another huge contest for 2 teams looking to really find their new identities a little bit. You look at Richmond. Interestingly, I think the Spiders have the best conference overall in terms of their ability to schedule and in terms of their ability to stay strong throughout the season. At New Albany and at Elon are the remaining CAA home games in that slate. But you look at the home games, too, for Richmond, Towson, Nova, JMU, and Delaware. Of course, you end the year at William & Mary, so that's always going to be tough. So look over at the Tribe now. You look at that schedule, 4 really tough CAA road games. At UNH, at JMU, that's just starting the month of October. At Stony Brook and at Towson, that's starting the month of November. So obviously we talk about critical games in conference play, but to have to do those back-to-back is going to be extremely tough. I mean, of course, you look at JMU, new coach Mike Houston. We know the Dukes are going to be looking perhaps a little bit different. On paper, their schedule at home sets up very nicely, so fans in Harrisonburg are going to love that. Delaware at home, William & Mary at home, Rhodey and Elon at home. Then you also look at the schedule and you say, oh, okay, JMU's got to head north a little bit, head to Maine, head to New Hampshire, then play Richmond and Nova back-to-back, of course, going to be key. And then New Hampshire, again, can they keep that playoff streak? We always talk about that with the Wildcats, but it's going to be true again this season. The new stadium welcomes William & Mary and JMU at home, also allows Stony Brook to come home, sandwiched in between a game at Towson, which I know they struggled on the road at Towson in the last couple of years, but overall, I know it's a lot to get into, and I know we just picked out a few games, but there's a number of games. I encourage you guys to go to CAAfootball.com to check it all out. I know we get excited about it, but it's starting to get in that mode already, because sooner or later I'm going to be looking over at you at CAA Football Media Day.
Well, Tim, the excitement will continue during the offseason. I think I can speak for both of us that the season can't get here soon enough. It all gets started with 4 games on the evening of Thursday, September the 1st. Until then, stay with CAAfootball.com and our social media channels for all your offseason news.